This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of April 2016, Mountain Glass is offering 25% off AccuGrind joints. Just put in the code AccuGrind, that's ACCUGRIND, at checkout. And for all you soft glass nerds, they're offering their COE 104 sale on mandrels and bead release. You can get it for 20% off. Just put in the code BEAD, that's BEAD, at checkout. For any further questions or comments, contact mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. This episode is also brought to you by C-Cube Co. C-Cube now creates a wide range of specialty and one-of-a-kind artistic glassware, items such as hand-blown wine crafts, insulated coffee mugs, pint glasses, and custom piggy banks that you can have personalized with imprinting, logos, and color accents that are available. Just go to C-Cube Co., that's SEACUBECO.com for more information. That's ccubeco.com. This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard. Whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast, we have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. Hey, yo, what do you know? It's the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 101. How's everybody doing today? Yeah. So welcome to the show. It's excited to be here, episode 101. Thank you guys again for supporting the show and tuning in and all the downloads and the reviews and the love. I just gave away my 10K giveaway yesterday. All this rhyming going on this Tuesday. It's exciting to do that, so congratulations to the big winner on my Instagram giveaway. I had a dragon that I gave away. It was an experimental piece that I made, kind of an R&D kind of deal. And you guys can go to my Instagram, which is at jmichaelglass, JMICHAELGLASS, and see what I'm up to on there. As well as you can follow the show on Instagram at wiseguy, WYZGUI_radio. And you can get some insights and some happenings on what we're doing with the show. And other than that, I'm super pumped to be here today. It's a beautiful Florida day. Spring's here. Hope everybody's enjoying their spring. Hopefully the snow is melting and the flowers are blooming and, you know, all that good shit. I'm on my way to work right now, driving on what is called the Courtney Campbell Causeway. That's a little bit of a bridge linking Pinellas County to Hillsborough, basically from where I live in Dunedin, connecting us to Tampa. And typically it is full of assholes that really can't drive, or they can drive, they just drive like 5,000 fucking miles an hour. Especially the guys out here on their little crotch rockets that like to bob and weave and all kind of fun stuff. So yeah, so hopefully I don't kill anybody or die myself while I'm talking to you in your ears. So today's show is 5 reasons why I feel that anybody and everybody should take a class. Whether it's a beginner, advanced, intermediate, whatever. There's lots of good reasons, and today we're going to cover 5 somewhat in-depth. It's actually going to be more of an overview, but an in-depth overview. It's going to be a little quick episode for you. We got some good interviews coming up here soon, as well as going over our Q&A we're going to have with Mike Souza, who's coming back on. Basically, it's a Mythbusters type style show, because there's been lots of questions and concerns and ideas and topics and thoughts and philosophies that have been floating around our world of glass, whatever kind of glass you're into, for years and years and years. And Mike Souza is a wealth of knowledge, and him and I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about these types of things, like why the term devit or devitrification is used for pretty much every reason why your glass goes to shit. Usually it's not that reason. So we're going to talk about all kind of fun stuff. So if you have any questions from Mike, please email them to info@wiseguyradio.com. That's info@wyzguyradio.com, and send me your questions. I got a couple already and looking forward to more. I've got a bunch myself, but really, this isn't just about me. I could always make it about me, but that'd be selfish. I want it to be about you all. And I do this show for you. And therefore, I'd like to get some kind of feedback and some you all hanging out and joining me in the conversation. So please send me your emails with your questions to info@wiseguyradio.com. And other than that, it is time for us to get into the 5 reasons why you should go take a class. All right, here we go. All right, so again, this is talking about, I'm going to say 5 reasons, and I'm not going to do like a 1 through 5. I'm just going to cover topics on reasons why I think, in my opinion, I feel that everybody should take at least one class. Because myself personally, over 17 years, I didn't really take a whole lot of classes up until last year or so. And the classes I took were classes with, the first one was with Coyle and Steve Seislov, a little collab they did up at Tobacco Leaf in Tallahassee. And then the second class I took was with Joe Peters and Peter Muller. And those who have listened to the previous episodes, I know you guys have heard me reference those classes. And for myself personally, what I'm going to get, my main take, which I'm going to start off with, usually your main take is at the end, but I'm going to give it to you at the beginning. My main take for why I feel personally that you should take a class is really it reinforces what you already know. And by that, I mean, if you have a skill set or tools that you already are using, when you go watch somebody else work who is at an advanced level like the guys that I saw, you really will see them do techniques and create work in a manner that you possibly already are. It's just that you're not maybe doing it as clean or something that you need to do to fine-tune it, but by me going to these classes, it really gave me the confidence that I was already doing the right thing. Or I just needed to tweak this and tweak that, and then I would, in a sense, be at the quality level where these guys were. Now, what differentiates myself from them, in a sense, besides how they sell their work, is just getting out in the industry and marketing your work. As we all know, when it comes to selling our glass, really, it's not about the hype, it's just about marketing. And a lot of the guys and gals in our industry that are making the high dollars for their work, they've gotten to a point where they're able to do that because of how they've either marketed their self or their product, just by getting their self out there and exposed, whether teaching classes or going and being involved in programs or events, whether they're trade shows, whatever. But really, my thing is, I really feel that it reinforces what you already know. So that's my take. Now, to back up to the very beginning, for the newbies or for intermediate guys and gals out there, my first, and like I said, I'm not going to do a 1 through 5, which I'm already starting my first, but my first take is that one of the most important reasons I feel for the newbies that you should take a class is to get an idea on studio setup. You may already have your shop all going, your ventilation's in, your lighting's in, your bench is up, your torches are hooked up, your hoses, blah, blah, blah. But when you go to somebody else's shop, it really gives you an opportunity to see how they are set up, how their ventilation's done, and how their lighting's done, and their hoses are set up, and blah, blah, blah. It's the difference from going into a studio where everybody's on quick connects, where then nobody's on quick connects. Like myself, for instance, I haven't actually upgraded to the quick connects yet, which I need to. It would make it a lot easier for myself to not only travel and go visit other shops, but also allow others to come to our studio and just plug in and not have to take the time to unscrew hoses, and it's a bunch of horse shit. Just quick connects the way to go. But to kind of back up, I feel is because you get a sense on how the studio is set up. Years and years and years and years ago, I had an opportunity to visit a studio, and the person that operated the studio wanted to charge me $1,000+ just to walk in their door. And that's because then, and still to this day, but back then, where the secrets were still there, and the studio environment was considered to be very sacred. And a lot of folks didn't want you to come in to see the tricks that they had, the certain tools, the shortcuts, the way that they were set up. Where nowadays, because we are somewhat, in a sense, quote-unquote open source, we're all about sharing this knowledge because we want everybody to have the safest environment, to be the most efficient, etc. So my first take is go take a class because you get to see what the studio setup's like. The second takeaway is it gives you an opportunity to see what the tools they're using. It's not just about the setup anymore. This gets now into the tools. I did a demo with Robert Mickelson several years ago down at LSD Gallery, and my favorite part about that, besides getting to work with Robert, was getting to see his setup. And now we were not in a studio environment. We were in underneath an Easy Up tent, but I got to see him take out all his tools, and more or less, him and I had a very similar setup. The butter knife was probably the one thing that I laughed that was our common thread as a tool, and also a couple other things involved in that. And this was right in the very beginnings of when he was starting to really get into his Weapons of Peace series. So he had blowhose setups and what have you. Wasn't using a foot. Oh, and actually, no, I think he was using a foot pedal. But I know I saw him do a demo a couple times, and he wasn't using a foot pedal at the time. But again, this gives you a chance to see tools now, because first you get into the studio environment, you can see what that's like, but then you get into the tools and see how the tools are set up. See how the torch itself is set and mounted. What level of at the person's body is it at, in terms of the... a term my wife says doesn't exist, which is agronomically, and it doesn't exist, but it's a term I like to use, which to me means something that is set up to be in position for your body to function properly, and type of thing, whether you're sitting in a chair or standing at a bench. But the tools you get to see are important because there's so many new tools out there that not all of them are necessary. I mean, shit, you could go spend $10,000 on tools and only use 3 of them. Like my go-to tools are a spoon, and my spoon that I have has a round or an oval shaped handle on it, which is killer because it lets me to rotate it in my hand, roll it around and stuff. My butter knife, has a slight serrated edge to the one side, but other than that, it's got a pretty clean, smooth edge. And if you can find a butter knife that has that, what I like about it is when I'm doing certain impressions, the serrated part lets me grab the glass and kind of drag it a little bit to give it a little bit more definition or shape for what I'm going to, and then you can just go back and polish away those serrated edges that you leave. But those are just kind of examples on why I feel getting to see the tools are important. And then the class, they will also show you how to use the tools, whether it's a glass-on-glass joint tool, that kind of stuff. Just different reamers, different. Some people like using Sofiettes in the lamp working studios. Sofiette is typically used in a hot shop, which allows the artist to blow air into a vessel once it is on a punty, basically, because you have a punty is a solid rod that your vessel is attached to, and now your opposite end of your punty is your opening where your blowpipe was once attached. And once your blowpipe's removed, you can no longer blow air into it. So the Sofiette allows you to go into the vessel and blow air into it and expand it, inflate it a little bit more. So those are just kind of little simple things, bench rollers, graphite pads, marver pads, the whole 9 yards. So it's definitely important to see. Another fun thing is it gives you a chance to see the side of the artist, to give you a chance to understand, especially if you're a beginner, the various sizes of material that we use, from punty to rod and to tubing. When you're ordering your glass, for instance, and you need to order a specific size tubing, like say you need to order some 1-inch medium wall for a specific project that you have. And typically a medium wall tubing is around a 2 mil, maybe 1.75 millimeter thickness. And the diameter of the size is based on the inside diameter. You have inside diameter, you have wall thickness, and then you have outside diameter. So if you're ordering like a 1-inch heavy wall, you're ordering a piece of tube that is 1 inches on the inside diameter, and then you add the wall thickness, which is typically in the heavy, the extra heavy is typically like a 3.5 to a 4.2, 4.7 wall thickness, which then gives you your outside diameter. And if you're new at this and you don't understand these type of things, this is again why classes are so important, because it gives you an opportunity to see the various sizes of rods and tubes. It gives you a good idea on what size to use for punties, what size to use for making certain cane or shapes or what have you. Especially because now with the newer technology and the amount of glass that's being produced in the raw material side, there is every frickin' size under the sun, from 2 millimeter all the way up to frickin' 70 millimeter and more, 120 mil. I mean, it just depends on what type of area field, whether it's scientific or artistic glass that you're doing. It's just amazing the range of sizes of glass we have nowadays. Oh shit, dropping my studio. So just kind of an idea. Also, again, you get to go into the studio environment and see whether or not the artist that you're taking the class from is going to give you good habits. Hopefully, if they're a good teacher, they're going to teach you good habits. They've got their blowpipes are all polished off. All their punchy ends are all polished off. Those kind of things that are going to give you good habits. And before I forget, I've got one little PSA I need to give you guys at the end of this episode that's important. That I've actually posted a video on Torch Talk yesterday. So just kind of a little note to myself while I'm thinking about it. Okay, so that's another way. Another idea is learning conception of product. Okay, and I mean by that is you have an idea for something that you want to make, and you're not really sure how to attack whatever it is you're making. And typically in classes that I've taken, the artist will do a sketch on paper of what it is they want to make, and then you go from the sketch onto another piece of paper and you break it down maybe into sections or proportions or sizes. You can label it and kind of figure out what colors are going to go where, what sections are going to be what, that kind of stuff. And then you can plan your attack and what moves you're going to need to make to accomplish this piece that you're making. It also gives you a reference point to look at, and also those that are watching, it gives them a reference point too. So they're not always asking, hey, what are you making? You can just point to the picture, or they can just look at the picture, or even just write a note and say, hey, this is what I'm making, and have an arrow point to your paper. You know what I'm saying? So just some kind of ideas, because it's so important when it comes down to creating something, for one, that you've never made before, or maybe it's a variation or a new take on something that you've already made, to really engineer it on paper, to get it out of your head, and really work it out on paper first. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fun to just go at it and improvise and have artistic expression when it comes to creating work. But if you're going to want to create the best work that you can possibly create, no matter what it is, even if you're just making a fucking handpipe, I mean, who cares? Really, for the first time, you should put it on paper and sketch it out and figure it out. What size tubing you're going to use, make your material list. And then keep this piece of paper that you have and start a journal. Make a notebook, that's all your sketches, so you have references to go back to down the road. It also allows you to give this references, say, to somebody coming in your studio that you want to collab with. You can pull it out and say, hey, this is what I've done in the past, this is how we went through the process, this is the material that was used to make it. It's going to save you a lot of time, and it's a little bit of a hack, in a sense, on how to go about really just keeping your bandwidth, and that means by how much brain power you're using to go on to create something. So do some sketches and engineer it on paper first. And usually when you go take a class, the artist that you're taking the class from, the teacher, is going to really give you that perspective. Let's see, I got my notes here. I just want to make sure that I've covered what I wanted to cover. So we want to talk about, so we're looking at, again, let's do a little recap. And again, this is kind of all over the place as I'm driving here, trying not to die. So you want number one is to go over general setup of studios, ventilation, fans, lighting, bench setup, hoses, all that kind of stuff. It gives you an idea of how they have it set up. The second one is understanding what tools they're using, how they use it, and why they use it. The other side of it is also learning about materials, their actual raw material, getting into the various sizes of rods and tube, and understanding that if you're not familiar with yet, they can walk you through that process. You can also then get into the process of learning the creation side of the plan and engineering it, and why it is the way it is. Make your moves. What are you going to do? What colors you're using? What materials you're using? And then keep that journal. Oh yeah, another part I wanted to say, I guess was the fifth part, is it really gives you a true sense of the studio environment. Now, everybody's studio is different. Some are indoors with air conditioners, some are not. My studio, for instance, at home, or at my home-based studio, is not air conditioned. But my studio at Disney is. Excuse me, I apologize for the yawn. So it really gives you an idea, if you're new at the glass and you want to get the real true experience, get into a hot shop in the middle of or studio space even in the middle of summertime. It's going to really give you a true understanding of what it means to be in a glass studio and why it is such a tiring job and art and it's just I love it, but man, it sucks sometimes. So it gives you kind of a real world experience when it comes to being in a studio environment, not just watching it on YouTube or from the other side of a glass panel. If you're watching it as like a studio, a gallery or a store, having a demo day kind of thing. Really gives you a chance to get behind the torch and sweat your ass off, get your cuts and your burns, and really get all that shit under your belt, because that's just the beginning of it. I know all of us that have been doing this for a long time have had plenty of cuts and burns, and still will, and it just is what it is. It's nature of the beast. So those are your 5 things there. So just real quick recap again. It gives you a chance to see studio environment setup, how people are going about doing their things. It gives you an opportunity to see raw materials, what are being used. It also gives you a chance on learning how to engineer and plan your attack on your items you're making, and also by keeping a journal. It gives you a chance to see tools and whatever else. And it also gives you a chance to get a real-world experience of the environment, too. And overall, for those who are experienced, it gives you a chance to reinforce and give you confidence that what you're doing is good. And then if you need to fine-tune and tweak anything, it is there to tweak it. And all we can do is improve. Always, always, always improve. Never settle for what you're doing now. Don't ever settle for it. There's that saying that goes, how good is the killer of great, and great is the killer of excellence. And we all want to reach excellence. So there you go. And my PSA for you guys, just a real quick side note. Yesterday while I was on stage at Disney, I was doing a seal between a section of, I think it was with 38 contracts tubing. And the contracts, or however you say it, has the ridges on the inside of the tube, like a scallop tubing basically, but it's that's on the inside. And I was attaching a section of 1 inch that was on a point that I had pulled down because I just needed a small piece of this contracts. And the end of my contracts, one end was open, the other end was sealed off. I had a punny on it, and I went to go put it together. I put my weld together, and then I blew air into my my point to make sure I blew the weld out so it was clean. And I wasn't really paying attention and wasn't thinking, and a flame had become trapped inside the tube of the contracts. And as soon as I introduced oxygen to it from my breath blowing air into it, it created what is called a backflash. And that backflash flame came out of my opening of my blowpipe or my point and burnt my tongue. I felt it was immediately, it burnt my tongue. And if you're getting into doing this type of work and you're using a larger size blowpipe, even if it's a 9.5 or a 12 mil or 16 or 18, whatever you're using, it is imperative that you are paying attention to making multiple seals, especially when you're getting into doing sections or items like bubblers, because when you go to attach a can and the neck or the stem part to the can, you can potentially trap a flame inside of the can of the bubbler. And when you go to blow air into it, again, as soon as that oxygen hits that flame in there, it's going to cause a backflash, which is going to go to the area that is open, which is going to be where your mouth is blowing through to. So one rule of thumb, and it's one safety hack that I always teach, is that if the blowpipe is in your mouth, your tongue should be covering the hole. Not blowing pressure or using your lips, but actually have your tongue in it. And there's a controlled breathing or controlled airflow type of deal where it's kind of like using your tongue as a pressure to blow air. Because really, when you're blowing air into glass or actually inflating the glass and expanding it, if you blow too hard, you're going to just blow it too thin. So really, when you're blowing air into the tubing, you're only actually creating pressure inside of the tube because the air molecules are hot and they want to expand, and they're going to expand at the area that is the softest. So say you're shaping out a can you can literally, like you said, those of you who have been in the hot shop environment, when you trap an air bubble, you literally just blow a little bit of air into it, just a real quick puff of air, and you can seal up your opening to your blowpipe, and the air will actually expand on its own because the air molecules are hot and the molecules are active and they want to expand. But if you have a flame in there and you go to add oxygen to it, again, that oxygen hits the flame and then boom, it blows out your mouthpipe or your mouthpiece of your blowpipe. And years ago, I had this happen when I was doing some production bubblers, and I burnt the back of my throat and also scorched the inside of my cheeks. And it was really scary, and it was a wake-up call to really pay attention. And you can't always use a blow hose on everything you're doing. Now, a lot of us do use blow hoses in terms of what we're doing and blowing air into our glass, but it's not a practical thing to use all the time. Sometimes you got to blow air just directly from your lips to the blowpipe. So something to think about, that if your blowpipe is in your mouth and you're not blowing air into the blowpipe, you need to have your tongue over the hole. And when you go to blow air into the blow hose or your blowpipe, when you do a weld like that, give it just a little bit of a puff of air. Don't create a lot of pressure, because the pressure that you're creating inside the glass is going to come right back at you. And it's hot and it hurts, especially when there's flame attached to it. So, just a little side note, PSA. You guys can see my little video I posted yesterday on the Torch Talk group on Facebook. So, there you guys go. I'm going to get the hell out of here so I can focus on my driving and no longer ramble. I love you guys so much. Again, thank you for tuning into the show. Episode 101, where we are discussing the areas that I feel are why you should go take a class. And love you guys. Hit me up, info@wiseguyradio.com. Give me your questions for the Mike Souza episode coming up. And the website's coming along very nicely. Congratulations again to the winner who won my dragon giveaway on my Instagram. And we will talk to you guys on the next episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. Love ya. Take it easy. Peace. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. For more information or to subscribe to The Flow, go to theflowmagazine.com. That's theflowmagazine.com. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.